this Caitlin Clark situation. See, three Indiana congressmen signed that proposal to have Kathy Engelbert respond in front of Congress about the assault that took place on Caitlin Clark. And if they would have lost this damn game tonight, I'm telling
multiple members of the United States House of Representatives are on record demanding answers from WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert about how this league protects Caitlin Clark. A letter from Congress, co-signed by several Indiana representatives, wants a response by July 24th on how the league investigates rough play and whether the Fever's own coaching staff is doing everything it can for its franchise player. That pressure was already sitting in the building tonight before a single shot went up, and by the final buzzer, Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White would give her critics something new to talk about, just not in the way anyone expected. Because tonight, Caitlin Clark did not play a single minute. Clark herself has said publicly that harassment and hate directed at any player, whether it is aimed at opponents, teammates, or coaches, is not acceptable, and she has tried to stay out of the political fight being waged in her name. That has not stopped the fight from happening anyway. What occurred with this team without her on the floor tonight says more about Stephanie White than almost anything else that has happened all season.
the bonus for Sophie to understand where she was at the time of the foul, to allow herself to be pushed and sell the push. Oh my God, Sophie dove and sold that damn push, sealed the deal. And I have to be honest,
Sophie Cunningham has become the emotional center of this Fever team, and late in the fourth quarter, she proved exactly why. With Phoenix pressing, Cunningham read the floor, understood exactly where the officials were looking, and let a defender run into her. It is a veteran's play, the kind that never shows up in a highlight reel but always shows up on the scoreboard. Indiana came away with the possession, and eventually, the win. 29 years old, years removed from going undrafted, and she is doing this without the MVP-caliber running mate, who usually takes the pressure off her. That connection with Clark, by the way, is something we are coming back to before this video is over.
and I want to apologize to Ty Harris, not Kelsey Mitchell, because Ty Harris got into certain situations where I don't know if she just lost track of the shot clock or what, but she had some shot clock cheese, bruh. She definitely did, but it's cool because she balled out.
Filling in at point guard, Tiasha Harris got real minutes tonight and put up 20 points, even if her relationship with the shot clock got a little loose a few times down the stretch. Nobody is complaining, because a reserve stepping into a starter's shoes and giving you 20 is exactly what a shorthanded team needs to survive. Kelsey Mitchell, meanwhile, walked a tightrope of her own. With under a minute left and Indiana clinging to the lead, she picked up a foul that for about 10 seconds looked like it might hand Phoenix new life. It did not. Indiana got the stop it needed, drew up a set, and Mitchell scored going right, using her body to finish through contact. This was not clean basketball. It was winning basketball.
Kelsey Mitchell made an idiotic foul when it was under a minute left. I thought that was it. Once Kelsey Mitchell fouled Khalil Copper, I'm like, that is the game. Come to find out, it wasn't. They drew up a play like they always do, because we already know Stephanie White, and she's currently in a hot seat. I mean, she's nationally in a hot seat.
What is not up for debate is that Stephanie White is coaching under more outside scrutiny than almost any bench boss in this league right now. And it is not just fans on social media saying it. Her name comes up nationally every time this Clark safety conversation resurfaces, because as head coach, the responsibility for how her franchise player is used, rested, and protected runs through her office. A win over Phoenix, even a shorthanded and unpretty one, buys her some room this week. A loss tonight with a congressional letter about her franchise's care of its star player sitting unanswered would have been a very different story heading into the weekend. White knew that walking into this game, her players knew it too, and you could see it in how hard Indiana fought for this one down the stretch. Coaches around this league have lost their jobs over far less than a public letter to the commissioner questioning how their franchise handles player safety, and White is smart enough to know that stacking wins right now is the only argument that actually moves the needle in her favor.
Finished her way, made them go right. They created some space. She went to the basket, up and over. So shout out to them for that. It was not a pretty win at all. Then Indiana Fever went on an 11-0 run in the fourth quarter when it was under 3 minutes left. They was losing this game, but overall, shout out to Aaliyah Boston. She showed up and showed out, and I'm telling you this right now. Stephanie White did not do to Aaliyah Boston what she did to Kayla.
Here is the moment that actually swung this game. Down 3 points with under 3 minutes left, Indiana ripped off an 11-0 run to close it out, capped by Aaliyah Boston doing exactly what a number one option is supposed to do with the game on the line. 38 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back, and White let her play through everything, right to the final buzzer. Compare that workload to how minutes typically get managed on nights when Clark is in the lineup, and you start to understand why some fans believe Stephanie White simply coaches a different team when her franchise cornerstone is not the one on the floor. It is a fair question to raise right now, because this entire season keeps giving people new reasons to look closely at how this locker room and this coaching staff handle pressure. Clark is averaging a career-high 20.5 points a game this year, second in the league in assists behind only Alyssa Thomas. Fans made her the number 2 vote-getter for the All-Star game. Her fellow players, when polled, ranked her 11th among guards in the league, a gap wide enough that a 3-time champion like Candace Parker publicly called it out on social media. Gino Auriemma took the opposite position entirely, arguing Clark has not won a major title and should not be treated as untouchable. So even before tonight's rotation numbers enter the conversation, this is a locker room and a fan base already primed to pick apart every decision that gets made. Is the coaching gap real, or is it noise from people looking for a pattern that is not actually there? We are going to look at what the numbers actually say.
It would have been catastrophic. Now, there was times where DeWanna Bonner was clapping in front of referees. Her and Alyssa Thomas definitely got touchy with players. But overall, I take my hat off to the Fever team, to the team itself, not to the coaching staff.
That clapping toward the officials from DeWanna Bonner was not happening in a vacuum. Bonner was on the floor on June 24th when her teammate, Alyssa Thomas, made contact with Clark's throat with a closed fist during a game Phoenix went on to win. Officials did not call a foul on the play in real time. The league later upgraded it to a flagrant and suspended Thomas 1 game for what it described as reckless contact. Thomas said publicly that she never meant to hurt anyone, and said afterward that she received death threats over the play, which nobody should have to deal with over a basketball game. Bonner and Thomas are engaged, on top of everything else, and Bonner used to be Clark's own teammate in Indiana before she was traded away, which is exactly the kind of tangled history that makes a simple foul call read like something much bigger to anyone watching closely. That single incident is the reason 11 members of the House Republican Study Committee, led by Texas Congressman August Pfluger and co-signed by several Indiana lawmakers, sent Commissioner Engelbert a letter demanding answers by July 24th. The letter was not only about that one play. It asked how the league reviews physical contact on the court at all, how it holds players accountable, and what it is doing about the online harassment aimed at players connected to these incidents. So when Bonner is out there clapping at officials in a completely different game, against a completely different opponent, it lands inside a story that is already bigger than one foul call.
Back, man. So we got Monique Billings, who played 15 minutes, who only had 2 damn points. 1 or 2 from the field. Aaliyah Boston, 38 minutes. She played 38 minutes. She did not do to Aaliyah Boston what she did to Caitlin Clark.
Look at the eye test versus Monique Billings tonight. 15 minutes, a make or 2 total points, mostly spent as insurance depth off the bench. Boston, at 38 minutes, was the engine the whole night. 21 points, 9 boards, a single turnover, in a game where her team gave the ball away a dozen times as a group. When your starting center is that efficient and still logging nearly the entire 40 minutes, that is either total trust from the coaching staff or a lack of any other trustworthy option at that position. Probably some of both. But it is a very different workload than what Boston has typically carried on nights when Clark is next to her in the starting five, and that gap is exactly what is fueling the argument that White manages this roster one way with her franchise point guard on the floor, and a different way entirely when she is not.
Stephanie White, everything you need to know. I'm going to be honest with you. So Aaliyah Boston had 21 points. She was 9 of 16 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, which is outstanding. 9 rebounds, 0 assists, 1 damn turnover. How many?
Put the full line in front of you because it earns it. 21 points on 9 of 16 shooting. 35% from 3, which for a player who built her name inside the paint is not a small development in her game. 9 rebounds. 1 turnover in 38 minutes of high-usage basketball against a Phoenix front court that has given plenty of centers trouble this season. That is all-star caliber production on the second night of a back-to-back carrying a short-handed roster without its top offensive option. If Aaliyah Boston keeps stacking performances like this one, the conversation in Indiana stops being only about what Caitlin Clark means to this franchise and starts including what Boston is quietly building on her own, with or without her.
This was a team win. Kelsey Mitchell had 29 points, 10 of 22 from the field. Bro, she's taking well, she didn't take 30 shots. Did she take 30 shots? Yeah, she's getting over 30 shots a game.
Kelsey Mitchell finished with 29 points on 10 of 22 shooting, and by the broadcast's own count, she was pushing close to 30 shot attempts once the trips to the free throw line are added in. That is an enormous workload for a guard who is normally the third or fourth option in this offense behind Clark. It won Indiana the game tonight. It also raises a real question about whether this roster can survive an extended Clark absence by simply feeding Mitchell that many looks every single night, especially with a playoff push underway and a national spotlight that neither the front office nor the league office wants to see dim. Every point Indiana scores right now gets measured against a season where television ratings, ticket sales, and even congressional attention are all tied to one 24-year-old point guard staying healthy and on the floor. Mitchell has spent her whole career as a scorer who thrives off the space Clark's gravity creates, so watching her carry this kind of shot volume completely on her own is a real test of what this offense looks like if the Fever ever have to survive a longer stretch without their star.
Kelsey Mitchell had 8 assists. Can y'all believe that? Raven Johnson is trash, bro. I can't even lie, bro. She looked very bad today. She played 23 minutes. She had 6 points. She was 3 of 7 from the field. She had 6 rebounds, 3 turnovers. But yeah, man, Raven Johnson looked trash today.
On the other side of the ball, Phoenix did not get the night it needed from its backcourt depth. Raven Johnson played 23 minutes, scored 6 points on 3 of 7 shooting, grabbed 6 rebounds, but also turned the ball over 3 times in a game Phoenix had every opportunity to steal late. When an opponent's role players cannot find any rhythm, it opens the door for a short-handed team like Indiana to survive on Cunningham hustle plays and Mitchell heroics alone. Credit to the Fever for taking advantage of it. But depth trouble on one side of the floor will not cover for depth trouble on the other side forever. And that tension is exactly what is sitting underneath Stephanie White's rotation decisions right now.
Turnovers did they have? So they had 12 turnovers. Them and the Mercury had 12. Now, how many points were scored inside the paint today since the Boston came back? See, they still had 42 points in the paint. Now, they did keep them under 90 points this game, but there was still 42 points in the paint. How many fast break points did they have? Only 4 fast break points, which is very, very different from yesterday's game. They gave up 27 fast break points against the...
Now zoom out to the full team numbers, because this is where the story actually turns. Indiana and Phoenix each finished with 12 turnovers, an ugly, even trade. Phoenix still scored 42 points in the paint, so this was never a clean defensive performance from start to finish. But look at the fast break numbers specifically. Just 4 fast break points allowed tonight. Compare that to last night, when this same Fever defense gave up 27 fast break points in transition against the Sparks. 27 down to 4 in back-to-back games with almost the identical roster on the floor both nights. Something changed defensively overnight, and it was not just effort, It was structure, discipline, getting back in transition, and a game plan that actually held up for a full 40 minutes. That is coaching, full stop. And it is exactly the kind of performance that makes the pattern we have been building toward even harder to wave off.
Which is mind-blowing in itself. But one thing I can say is that they turn things around. I don't know, but it seems like when Caitlin Clark don't play, Stephanie White coaches the team a little different. Now, I'm not saying that she's doing this on purpose, but hell, it looked pretty damn spooky the way she coached when Caitlin Clark is not playing. It looked very, very, very different. So
here is the real question underneath all of this. Is Stephanie White actually coaching a different version of this team depending on whether Caitlin Clark is available? And if she is that a problem, or is it simply smart basketball? There is a case for both answers. Every coach in this league adjusts rotations, pace, and defensive schemes based on who is available that night. Losing your best offensive gravity forces a staff to lean harder on structure, on transition defense, on getting your most efficient big the ball more often, because there is no longer a playmaker who can bail out a broken possession on her own. Tonight's 27-4 turnaround in fast breakpoints allowed, and Boston's 38 minutes of low-mistake, high-efficiency basketball both fit that explanation without needing a hidden motive anywhere. That is not bias. That is a coach solving a different puzzle with different pieces on the board. On the other hand, the pattern is consistent enough that it is not just one fan noticing it on a message board. Minutes distributions, defensive intensity, and in-game adjustments look measurably different depending on who is in the lineup. And that is exactly the kind of thing that invites scrutiny when your franchise is already fielding questions from Congress about how it treats its most important player. If White is capable of drawing up this level of defensive discipline and this level of trust in her role players without Clark, the fair follow-up question is why some of those same principles do not always show up as consistently once Clark is back in the lineup. Nobody outside that locker room knows the full answer. But the numbers from these two games, side by side, are exactly why the question keeps resurfacing, and exactly why it is not going away just because Indiana won tonight.
It's the Sophster. Sophie, bro. I really hope Sophie remains with Caitlin Clark. If Caitlin Clark leave, I hope Sophie find her way to go back with her. I just love their connection. I love their duo. One thing about Sophie, she gonna stand on business and do everything she need to do.
Whatever happens with the coaching debate, Sophie Cunningham's role on this roster is not really in question. She has said herself, including in comments made before Indiana's game against the Sparks, that she and her teammates are not spending much energy on the noise coming out of Washington, and that her focus is on the people in that locker room. That matters, because her connection with Clark specifically has become one of the more talked about dynamics in this league all season. Cunningham has been one of the most outspoken defenders of Clark on the floor and off it, and Aaliyah Boston has said on her own podcast that she has stood firmly behind Clark through this entire stretch. Tonight, with Clark not on the floor at all, Cunningham still found a way to be the emotional igniter this team leaned on late. That is not a coincidence. That is what a real culture looks like from the inside.
I don't want to verbatim say this, but it seemed like when it comes to her coaching, when Caitlin's not playing, she just do something a little different. It's like she getting a little different type of mode or something. Is it me or am I tripping? Because I damn sure been feeling that way. But get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this. I will be back.
So where does this go from here? Commissioner Engelbert has until July 24th to answer Congress on how the league reviews physical play, holds players accountable, and protects athletes from harassment online. Caitlin Clark's timeline for getting back on the floor is still the single biggest variable in this fever season, bigger than any individual box score. And Stephanie White now has 2 straight games of evidence, 1 loose loss in transition defense and 1 disciplined, efficient win that fans and analysts are going to keep picking apart no matter what she says about it publicly. Indiana does not get much time to sit with any of this either way, with the schedule only getting tighter as the playoff race heats up and every remaining game now doubling as evidence in a debate that has already reached Washington. So I will leave it with you. Does tonight prove Stephanie White is simply a good coach adjusting to the personnel in front of her, Or does it confirm what some of you have been saying for weeks about how differently this team gets coached with Caitlin Clark and without her? Tell me which stat from tonight stood out to you the most. Drop your take on Stephanie White in the comments, and if you want the next Fever breakdown the moment it drops, get subscribed before you go.